far as myself is concerned, then my name is Bilal Davis. I am a Muslim convert or revert, as we like to refer to that. For we believe as Muslims that the Muslim is one that submits his will to the will of the Creator. And that every individual is born having or born in submission to his Creator. That is, that until he is taught to do certain things, then he naturally carries out that which he, as a baby and as a child, that which he was created to carry out. And so he submits to the will of the Creator as a child, and he is removed from that by being taught other than that which pleases our Lord the Most High. And thus the one who embraces Islam and returns back to that submission, and the one who turns his attention back to submitting his will to his Creator, we believe that he has not converted. In actuality, he's reverted back to that which he was originally born upon, and that is submission to the will of God. And so I was an individual who was born into a Christian family and grew as a Christian child, being of Afro-Caribbean background, and coming from a particularly hard and dangerous area in Birmingham, as most children and most youth who reach their teenagers, the teenage years, I was involved in that which many of the youth get involved with, guns and gangs and drugs and what have you. Being involved in that for a period and leaving that which I was raised upon and nurtured upon as a Christian, no doubt displeasing my parents, displeasing my family. I was, as far as I was concerned, a victim of circumstance. That it just so happened that I lived in a particular area and I lived in a particular region. That region forced me, I believed, to fall into and to have the type of company that I had, and likewise to embark upon some of the activities that we embarked upon, and we won't go into detail concerning that. For a period, I remained upon that during my teenage years, and then Allah, the Most High, from His wisdom, placed upon me a situation, and that is that I was incarcerated for a period because of some gang-related activities. And that, I believe, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, were the beginnings of my guidance, or of my path towards guidance and towards rectifying myself and my state. Because while I was incarcerated, I had the ability to read and to study and to reflect upon myself and upon life. And likewise, being an individual that was not unintelligent, I was able similarly to reflect upon various issues and various religions and various things that I was looking into and studying at that time. Upon that, during that period of reflection, I came across some books that were written by an individual, or a group rather, known as the Nation of Islam. And those of you who may be acquainted with the Nation of Islam may or may not know that the Nation of Islam are in actuality not an Islamic organization, even though they use the name the Nation of Islam, but they are an organization who in actuality are pro-black Pan-African organization that utilize the Quran, because of the fact that particularly in America, the bulk of those who were from the African American communities have respect for Islam and respect for the Quran. And so they utilize Islam and some of the verses from the Quran to say that no doubt the black man is not only a human being, but the black man is in actuality God incarnate. And that each and every black person is in actuality a part of God. And that the white man is the devil. And that, yeah, I mean, you may laugh, but we took it very seriously. that the white man is the devil. And they used some verses in the Quran to substantiate that. And they mentioned from those verses, there is a verse when Allah the Most High, He mentions that in reference to the Day of Judgment, the day that we will bring forth the mujrimun, will bring forth the criminals, zurqa, blue-eyed. And so they utilize that to say, it's clear that the criminals and the mujrimun, they were the white man, they are the white man. And they will be punished on the Day of Judgment on the basis of their criminality. And this verse substantiates that, for they will be blue-eyed. And this was something that we were reading and looking into, and it was something that caught our attention. No doubt, the effect did not last, for indeed, we came across other verses, myself, speaking about myself personally, wherein Allah the Most High mentions, يَوْمَ تَسْوَدْ وُجُوهٌ وَبْيَضَّتْ وُجُوهٌ. On the day that some faces will be whitened, and some faces will be blackened. And as far as those whose faces are blackened, then it will be said to them, have you disbelieved after belief has come to you? Taste then the punishment of your disbelief. And so that sort of put a bit of a spanner in the works of that which we initially started looking into. And it no doubt diametrically opposed the concept of every white man being in hellfire and every black man not only being in paradise but being a part of God. And so we continue to study, myself, I continue to study and look around the issue of that which was present within the Quran. Because I found that the message that was present within the Quran was the most attractive. I was well acquainted with the Bible growing as a Christian, going to Bible studies and Sunday school and so on. I was well acquainted with the Bible, but the message of the Quran was particularly attractive to me. So I continued to study and to read, and I realized a number of things, and I discovered a number of things that I didn't believe and understood and knew about the Quran and the religion of Al-Islam. From that is that I discovered that the Muslims believe in one God, and that God is not a man, and that God has the most beautiful names and attributes, and that was the God of all of the prophets and the messengers, that it was the God of Abraham, who I discovered Muslims believe in, the God of Jesus, who I discovered Muslims believe in, the God of Ismail, the God of Ishaq, Isaac, who I discovered Muslims believe in, the God of Job, the God of Yunus, Joseph, the God of Lot, the God of all of those prophets and messengers that I was acquainted with growing up as a child, reading the Bible and studying the Bible and going to Bible school. Similarly, I discovered that the Prophet Muhammad in actuality was not worshipped by the Muslims, and that he, as far as Muslims believe, and as far as the Quran teaches, that he is the seal of the prophets and the messengers, and that his message is one and the same as all of those prophets and messengers that came before. I'budullah, ma lakum min ilahin ghayru. Worship Allah, you have no God but He. I realize that the Muslims, they do not worship idols, as I used to believe. I thought Muslims were worshippers of idols, and that they do not worship except the one God that we as Christians used to refer to as the Father. And that they believe that any individual that disbelieves in Jesus and denies Jesus, then he no doubt is not and cannot be considered a Muslim. Similarly, I went on to discover that from the belief of the Muslims is that, contrary to that which I was taught, they believe that there is not a prophet and a messenger that can be referred to as God or a part of God or the Son of God. That includes Jesus. That Jesus himself as we study and we come across in the Bible even, that he called his followers to worship his father, or as we find being referred to in the Bible. And as Muslims, that we do not accept the fact that God is to be referred to as the Father, for indeed that is an earthly description. Rather, that our Lord the Most High, Allah, is the one God that Jesus called to, and highlighted that I have not come to destroy the law, and the law that is of Moses, the first of which being, Hear, O Israel, your God is one God. You should not make any graven images of anything that walks in the land, flies in the sky, or swims in the sea. And so I started to discover that Islam had with it something from clarity and something from a purity of issues that I had problems with growing as a child or as a young Christian boy. And so I began and continued to study. And when I looked into the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, I realized that he was not Pakistani, as I used to believe. In actuality, no disrespect to Pakistanis that is, but in actuality, he was an Arab, and that he was from the lineage of Abraham, and that his lineage goes back to Abraham from his son Ismail, and that he was born during a time of turmoil, during a time that polytheism was widespread, and that he was illiterate, and that this illiterate man began to claim, or this illiterate man that was referred to as the trustworthy by his people, began to call to the fact that he was sent as a prophet and as a messenger. And that how could this individual who was known for a period of 40 years as trustworthy, as truthful, as upright, as one that never lied, why would he now begin to lie against God? Likewise, being an illiterate man, how could this illiterate man produce a book that has literary excellence as the Quran does? A book that is excellent in regards to eloquence and has reached the peak of literary excellence. So these are all issues that I began to look into and study. And I looked into his life. I looked into the fact that he called to the most noble character, the most noble manners, that he called to justice, to uprightness, that he called to the feeding of the poor and taking care of them, that he called to the removal of oppression, and that he called the people to clarify that which they were upon by way of worship of other than one God, and in actuality purify their worship and concentrate that worship to their Lord and their Creator Allah. That he didn't call to himself, rather that he called to the Creator, and that throughout the whole of the Quran his name is mentioned on 5 occasions. And so I began to think and discuss why. If this was a man that wrote a book so that he would be followed, or so that he could gain something from material possession, why would he only mention himself in the book on 5 occasions? And so all of this turned me towards the religion of Islam, and I began to study it, and eventually it became clear to me that this was not in actuality the writings of some desert Arab. Rather, this was the revelation that was sent, the final revelation and the seal of all the books that were sent to us from our Lord the Most High. And so I became a Muslim somewhere in the region of 1990, 1991. And I continued to study the religion of Al-Islam there and after.